It was a lotus,
Yeah,
but it looks like a
yeah.
multi-dimensional lotus, right?
I know, it's pretty cool, isn't it? Um, there's actually lotuses on the property that I live, and I love the concept of the lotus because it comes from the mud. And you hear that, you know, hear sayings like that as you grow up and you think, oh yeah, whatever, but now I get it. I get what that means.
What does it mean?
Well, it's funny, I'm actually reminded of I went to a bush doof.
What?
Do you know what a bush doof is?
A bush stuff.
A bush doof, bush doof, so DOOF. And a bush doof is basically like a rave, but it's out in the bush.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So, and I went to a bush doof a few years ago. It was my first one. And what happened was I I had this experience where this person said to me, because it was raining quite heavily, it was muddy, and the person said to me, now, I want you to try something. And I was, I trusted this person, and he said, get right down into the mud. And I literally, for the first time, because I didn't like being dirty, like as a child, it was like, oh, I don't want to get my feet dirty. And I just, and then I fully just lay down in the mud and I wept like a baby
Really?
because I felt mama. Yeah, I felt the earth. I felt mama earth. And it felt so beautiful to drop the constraints and just get dirty. And now it feels like the more I open, the more connected I am with mama, and the more willing I am to be in the mud.
Well, there must be something to it.
I don't mind. Well, I don't, there's something about, because in those moments of darkness, when you're shadow dancing, as I call it, it looks muddy. You can't really see a way out. And, it feels like you're just totally covered in shit. And in a way you are, the stuff's come to the surface to such a degree that you're covered. And so those moments are profound, they're heavy. That feeling of not being able to get out, not knowing where there's going to be or if there's going to be a solution.
Right.
They're the deep moments. And from those moments is where I've blossomed. It's where my petals are slowly one by one coming out.
Wow.
And my true self, like who I really am, is actually coming out. But I needed those mud moments. I needed to go there. I couldn't just be, I wanted to just be the beautiful flower that was perfect and there's nothing wrong with me and everyone likes me and it's all good and it's all shiny, but actually that's not where I was. I'm not in there. I'm in the mud, baby.
Did you go back and do it again?
Well, interestingly, you mean literally play in the mud?
Yeah, literally. Go lay in it again, or you just had to have that one activation?
Well, in a way, it opened up something for me because I used to wear shoes a lot when I would walk, and I stopped wearing shoes. And I used to live right next to this incredible, powerful mountain, and I stopped wearing shoes up the mountain, and I stopped taking my phone up the mountain, and I just began to have real, raw experiences that were just to connect. There was nothing else, it was just me and the earth. And she showed me the most magical places and guided me to places once I had kind of dropped all that stuff.
Wow.
It was like the more willing I was to get dirty, the deeper she took me.
Wow. Yeah, I was looking at
Yeah.
some pictures. A friend of mine, a friend of the family, her husband, her son. Her name's Michelle Zena, and I noticed she went to Mexico with her sister, and they took a bunch of pictures. I guess it must be some kind of resort type thing or something. I don't know, but they were submerged in a mud pit, like this giant mud pit, like bigger than this room, and I thought, I wonder what that's like. And now you're talking about it. So
That's funny, isn't it?
yeah, it must not just be for cosmetic purposes or skin purposes. It must be an energetic thing that goes back eons.
Yeah. Well, there's a beautiful lake up in the hinterland, not far from me, and I went swimming there, and there's the edges are all full of ochre, which is the markings that Aboriginal people use on their faces and on their
Okay.
body, and I literally just slathered myself in the ochre, and the feeling of being connected to the earth was so beautiful. It was something. There's a rawness to it.
Mm.
It's not about a nice view there's nothing kind of pretty about it. It's just the earth is literally all over you. It's on you. There's swimming in the ocean, that's a feeling, but having the dirt all over your body is such an incredible experience. There's something about dirt, it's
Yeah.
just so grounding.
Yeah. Yeah, I've only done that once. I did it once at the base of a mountain in Arkansas in 2016. And it just all happened. It was all,
Nice.
yeah, it was the same thing you're talking about. But I mean, I ended up gathering, creating a triangle, building a fire, gathering all these stones and stuff. And that's what ended up happening. Walking, crawling around on all fours, rolling around in the dirt, jumping in it was a freshwater spring, freshwater pond. It's pretty wild. So,
Well, well, I do want to share that there's a longing for me to be. There's a question I have around technology as well, because there's a longing for me to drop everything, and it's not on my path right now to do. I'm here where I am, but I can feel there's this desire to go fully immerse. And I've
Right.
always known that I would, go out into the desert and I would connect. I feel there's a galactic aspect to it,
really?
but that there would be nothing. Yeah, there would be nothing there that, it wouldn't be technology. It would just be me. It's like the 40 days in the desert kind of feeling. Like you just go out there and you're bare and you're left with yourself. And, I do that work anyway, but to fully be out in nature without any trappings, without
Yeah.
anything,
Good luck.
that feels like it would be, yeah.
I won't be going with you.
Well, of course.
Not unless I'm put in that
I would do it safely. I would do it safely.
I went on a 6-day hiatus.
You know what I mean.
Just to go figure out what I was capable of doing, and I finally decided I'm capable of having a cabin with running water in nature. I'm like, but I have a friend in northern New South Wales, James Greenshields. I don't know if you've ever
yeah.
seen him. He's been on the show
Yeah.
a lot. He
Yeah, I
goes,
have.
he
Yeah.
goes to the bush regular. I mean, pretty consistently. Like
Yeah.
I know he went at least one time, and I believe he only took water, and he went by himself. And he goes a lot. He does like retreats with men and young men, and but yeah, he talks about it. He talks about how when he approaches the place, even if he's with people, he asks permission. He goes through all this. It's a really powerful kind of thing. Yeah, I like talking to him about it.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Go ahead. There's a lag.
Yeah, well, it's exciting. That's what I'm feeling more and more and seeds are getting planted. That's what's coming is more connection to the land, more connection to all beings of the land.
Yeah.
Where we're in communication with everything. You know, it's not like, oh, there's a tree over there and here's me. It becomes, you know, the Trinity you talk about, it becomes a merging, it becomes a constant communication. And I feel like that's what is calling me, or that's what's sitting there in the field that I know is coming, is that there's no lag between me and the tree. It's just a merging. And that's what, you know, I'd have to say that's one of the things that I'm excited about most about what's coming, is that emerging back into the field, is to being able to slipstream, you know, to feel everything, to move, to reconnect.
Do you go by yourself, or do you go with someone?
Well, the walking I do now, and I've been doing more couch work than walking lately, but
I mean, like grid work from the
when
couch?
I was doing a lot of
or Netflix
shadow,
and chill.
it's shadow
Oh,
work.
shadow.
No, not necessarily Netflix. Shadow work. I call it couch work because the level of exhaustion that I've had, the constant resting that I've needed to integrate the energies, has been consistent over the last few years, to the point where I actually call it couch work, because sometimes I just got to sit on that couch, and I might be like, this is where a lot of my weaving came into play, because it's something that I could do while I'm sitting there, you know, and I've got a beautiful couch on the back deck, and I can look out into into nature, and it's not just curled up in fetal position, although sometimes it is that as well.
You better believe it. No doubt about that.
Yeah. So the walking I was doing was mostly by myself. Now when I walk, I usually walk with my partner.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was doing walking back then, I walked up this mountain easily, I'd say 1,000 times easily in the time that I lived there. And at the time, no one else would really climb that mountain because it was a really difficult track to get up there. And usually I was the only one up there at dusk. And I basically made a pilgrimage every single day to go up to this mountain. And you could feel the indigenous up there. You could feel there were sections where, like, there was a section there where you had to ask permission to enter.
So you knew that intuitively?
Oh yeah, it was obvious. My son, he would actually go, I'm not going in there.
Really?
And one day when I was up there and I was being flippant and not respectful, and I literally ended up in hospital. I didn't ask for permission. I was in my ego, and I ended up getting basically stabbed by a big stick that was on a log. I fell over and landed straight onto this stick. And I've still got it. The scar still works me over. And this is, I'll say, like maybe 5-6 years ago.
Did you go back?
I can still feel it.
Wow.
Yeah, I did. I did. I had to make peace every time I drive past it, because I don't live near there now, but I drive past it, I'm just like, give a silent, quiet little, like, I see you.
I see you.
Because I see you. Mountain,
I see mountain, you sent me to the ICU.
Well, that mountain worked me over. I lived in that property for 6 years, and it was, I'm still purging what happened at that time. It really, the potency of that mountain, it really worked me. And I needed it, but it was beautiful. It took me to places that were both incredibly difficult, and it also showed me Mama. It opened me up to her and the delight in that. And I started eating the berries on the mountain, and I'd never really been a nature kind of person. I was a musician and played piano since I was a small child, and I just didn't really understand what it was. And I needed both. I say, that mountain really beat me up.
Well, I mean,
But
you
isn't that
might.
amazing that a mountain, the energy of the mountain can actually do that? Don't you think that's just incredible? Like, I know your
Yeah.
story about, what happened during your festival
Oh,
on that mountain.
oh,
But I think
yeah.
that's so amazing.
Yeah, that was wild. But like even being in places like Sedona or Kauai, I definitely, you definitely, can feel it. You can definitely. Sometimes I worry because if I go out or whatever, that I don't think about asking permission. It's not,
Right.
and it's not like, I don't know, a bad thing, but I think, are they going to punish me? You know? But,
Well, look, this place was very obvious. I generally don't ask permission unless I feel like it's called from me. I kind of know if I need to, and it's not really asking permission. I guess it is. It's more acknowledging
right, right,
what's beyond the veil,
right.
and saying, "I feel you."
I do
I
that.
see you here,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Yeah.
it's not may I enter,
Yeah.
because if you're
Okay.
called to go there, then you've already been invited to go.
Well, that makes sense to me because I do acknowledge it. I do speak with it. I speak with it all when I
Yeah.
go. When I go. Now, you said something a minute ago. I don't want to forget. You said
Okay.
when your couch. What is it? What do you call it?
Doing the couch work.
Couch work. And by the way, I remember.
Yeah.
4 or 5 years ago when we did 4 shows with Lisa Transcendence Brown, who at the time was really out there. That's one thing she talked about. She talked about having gone through the ascension
Right.
process already, and that this is what you can expect. And one of those things was you'll be on your back a lot. You'll be laying down a lot. And that's just part of the process. So, and I think a lot of people can attest to that. I've seen a lot of people make comments in the last couple of days about how much they're sleeping and napping and doing couch work. But you mentioned weaving. You do your weaving there. I've heard other people, some friends of mine, have a weaving group. What is weaving to you? For you, what is it?
Do you want to see an example of something I weave?
Oh, you mean real weaving? I thought you meant like
Yeah.
etherical weaving. Yeah, I want to see what you weave. Yeah, of course.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, let's get me out of here. Wow, look at that butterfly.
Yeah.
What is that? It's incredible. What is that?
It's art, Todd. It's art.
It's wow.
This is probably one of. I'm glitching, so I can't tell if you can see
No,
it.
we can see it. We can
I'm
see
going
it.
the wrong way, aren't I?
Yeah. You are.
Oh,
You're good.
so. Sorry, it's getting caught on my cable. Yeah, so this is probably more one of my psychedelic-y pieces.
To me,
That's something that I notice is you can see there's a little mushroom on the hill. So everything that is a tree there. I'm going the wrong way because it's reverse on.
it's like a little forest.
That's a tree.
Here. That's a tree. Okay.
Yeah. Everything that I weave.
Uh-huh.
This was months because I would just do little bits here and there. Everything that I weave, everything that I use, the materials, it's either like gifted, recycled, or I actually buy hand spun wool from other creators. So there's amazing what people are doing with weaving materials. And it's interesting because when I'm weaving, I'm actually processing.
That's what I was going to ask you.
I'm processing I'm processing what's coming up for me. It's giving my mind something to focus on. Mm-hmm. Because often when you're in the depths of the mud, the mind is the thing that's, coming in to try and get you to stop going in there. It doesn't want you
To look.
see.
Yeah. Doesn't want you to
It
see.
wants to stay in the safe. It wants to stay in the safe zone, which is where we know what's happening, and this goes there, and that goes there, and everything's, knowable. So when I'm going into shadow work or couch work, what's happening is I'm going into this mud. I can't see what's happening. I can only feel that there's a process happening, that there's a trauma that's coming to the surface, there's a flavor, there's a program I've been under that is now coming to the surface for me to feel. And that's the most important part, is to feel what's there, because in the feeling of what's there and just letting it be, because we spend a lot of our energy avoiding and creating scenarios and setting things up so that we never have to feel that thing. It's not conscious. It's just this autopilot. That's what the programming does. So the weaving helps me to, not only am I bringing the new earth energies, because as you can see, that's very, like, the colors that are wanting to come through my creations are so vivid and so bright, and it's like I'm seeing new earth. I'm seeing that connection to the land I'm talking about. I'm seeing the colors. I'm seeing what's beyond the veil, and that's coming through my work. And while I'm focusing on that, that's holding me while I feel the other stuff. The stuff that isn't, it's no longer relevant. It doesn't need to be there anymore.
It's the story.
And there's obviously a part of me that, and it's obviously feels safe enough to feel it now. Like I have a strength, or I'm ready to feel it. And, it's incredible. There's fuel in there. There's actually fire and fuel in those moments. I can feel it right now. Like, we connected last night and I've literally almost been sick to the stomach. And I wasn't like that last time when I connected in with you. But this morning, I don't know what it is. It's like there's another layer that's appearing about connecting and being vulnerable and showing myself, because I've literally been like, oh. And in moments like that, it's good for me to use my hands and to weave. There's something, I can even just imagining doing it now. My system is settling. It feels and old, and something I would do with women in the circle, and it feels something that is, it connects me to something deeper, and I don't have to focus on, what's coming up.
Yeah.
It's beautifully profound. And I'm noticing that there's a lot of women in particular who are being called back to fiber art. They want to knit, they want to crochet, they want to weave baskets, they want to, it's really coming back into the consciousness. And there's starting to become groups now where we just sit and gather and we weave together.
And storytell. And
it's so beautiful because, it's just you be together. It doesn't matter kind of where you're at or what's going on. It's you, that just is something that you do together. It's like a bridge. It bridges consciousnesses, it bridges beings. And it's just, it feels basic, and I love it. It's something it wasn't in my life before, and I'm so happy it is now.
Yeah, I remember seeing an episode of Outlander, and they went into a village, and Claire went in, and these women were, I forget what they were doing. I think they were doing some kind of dyeing, and they had her wee in a bucket, but the whole thing was they were doing it. They were all doing it together. And then, like, growing up, in my culture, like, they would have tamale parties. And so they would have, like, this big table, and one person would get the husk out, and the next one would put the masa on, and then, they would, but it wasn't just making tamales. It was actually like a cultural, fraternal or fellowship kind of thing. Like, you know what I mean? Same thing. It was like weaving, really. You were mentioning a
Yeah.
minute ago when you're doing the couch work or when you're doing this weaving and you're processing.
Yeah.
I'm just curious. I
Mm.
tend to be one when I tend to be one that when I do the processing, I mostly speak the words. And I was just wondering, like, I wonder if there's a lot of other people out there like that. But I find that if I speak the words, like if I speak the steps, the thresholds crossed, or the understandings, or the awarenesses gained, that for some reason it has more power. I don't know.
Wow.
Do you do it in your
I'm
head?
feeling you.
I'm sure it's the same, maybe.
No, sometimes I do need to. I usually, if I'm doing it in that way, I tend to put it down on paper. If it's something that's really crunchy, as in it's quite lodged and it needs me to sit from a broader perspective, I will write things down. But for me, no, I'm not usually in those situations in couch work, in shadow dancing. I'm generally not putting words to it. I'm simply just being there,
Right.
and I'm not trying to avoid what's happening.
So
I'm recognizing that I'm in a process. Like, this is something I've been saying to myself, really started to hit hard when I was living in the mountain around the same time I bushed off. This is like 2016, around this time. It really started to amplify, as in the shadow work, the need to do shadow work. And I just knew, I knew what was happening. My higher self, my inner self just knew this is not real. It's real that you're experiencing it. You just need to feel it. You need to feel it to heal it. And some of those experiences were gut-wrenching. They were horrible to feel. And I won't say it's lessening. It is lessening. I'm much more, it's not when it comes in for me to feel something, it's not deep. It is deep, but I feel more stable now. There's more light in my field to process it more quickly. I'm not having to go in for as long.
I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Yeah, which feels fucking relieving.
Did you go through any of the last few days?
Oh, yeah.
Man, that was wild, wasn't it?
Oh, honestly, it's the last weeks is just like a constant. I almost feel like I'm plugged into an electrical socket and I'm just in this constantly being wired. And actually for this period, I was called to start water fasting, which I've never done. Start water fasting and start doing the celery juice in the mornings and start doing a liver detox. Like, life was like, okay, now you need to do this right now. So I've been on it's gentle, but a very solid detox for this period. And I'm glad that I'm on it because I can feel the amount of information that's coming in for us to integrate with. And it feels it's strong, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'm getting that message too. I mean, first of all, the body is. I've never had this level of communication with my body. It's full of information. But one thing, and this has been happening for quite a while, I guess. And I don't know, maybe it's my resistance to it, and maybe that's why I think it's been happening for a long time. But like the whole lightness, the lightness of, and I say I like to eat what I want to eat, but like yesterday, I didn't eat that much. I had a big taco and some soup. And I had the soup first, and then I decided late, I'm working late, I'll go get a big taco. And so I would imagine it's probably like a hamburger, a good-sized hamburger.
Yeah.
And something kept telling me, you can't do this. It's not about
Yeah.
what you're eating. It's about you just don't need to. I know it's, and I always say I would love to eat, but I can feel like something happening there. And then again, there are times when I have to eat like 3 days in a row, everything, because all the energy that's been depleted. So I don't know.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um,
Well, I've definitely, I've had, oh, you go.
no, you could.
Um, my phone is so glitchy. I'm literally just looking at. I can't even see you. I'm just literally looking at. It's pretty
Nope.
cool colors, actually. I'm enjoying it, but it's like a glitchy Monet is on my phone. I can't even see you.
Take a
I'll just
screenshot.
pretend I'm like talking to you on the phone.
Oh, we can
But
see you just fine. You look great.
you can see me. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had I love food. I love creating food. I love the feeling of food. It's definitely been my drug of choice. And something's just changed, That's why I've never done a water fast before, because I just was too attached. I've done other, juice fasting and things like that, but it's like it was my security blanket, and something's just happened. It's like I don't need it. Something's shifted. It's like I've gone into another parallel version of me, and it's just not there. The attachment's not there. And it's interesting. I heard Judith Kusel talk about mana, so just being able to live on energy. And then I noticed that the number one film in Australia on Netflix right now is about a little girl who, I haven't seen it, so I think it's a question, is she or not, but she just lives on mana, essentially. She's not eating. And I always thought that idea was horrible. Like,
I saw that.
what? Our future is we're not going
Right?
to eat?
I would think that's horrible.
That's fucked up. I don't want that future. Like,
Yeah.
I came here to eat.
You're making me hungry right now.
But now I can now I can feel it won't be like that I'll feel deprived. It'll
Right.
just be like I'll feel full already.
Well,
And I love, I'm eating more fruit, and I'm eating lighter. I make this real mean hummus, and we've just been eating lots of carrot sticks and hummus, and there's not a lot that my body, it just doesn't need as much. And I've always known that this would come. I've always known that this would happen. But yeah, it feels good. It feels like it's happening. That's what I'm excited about.
yeah. How was yesterday for you? I guess you told us already. Because that seemed to be a really big day for people, this 22/11/22.
Right. Wow, it's interesting. I'm like, yesterday? What happened yesterday?
Yeah, I get
Look,
that.
I've been creating art. So there's actually a Bushduff coming up next weekend, and they've asked me to create a nook in like a little area where I weave between trees. So I'm creating this beautiful little nook. And so I've been, doing some of that and preparing for that. So the art has been a real stable point for me. It really grounds me with these energies. Like, I can feel it's just constant. Like I said, I feel like I'm just constantly getting upgraded right now. But I feel real solid. I feel solid with myself. I feel solid with my partner. I feel solid with my life. I feel as in, like, I've done so much letting go where I'm not trying to attach to an outcome, and I'm just traveling. I'm just riding the wave of what's happening, that it's not really knocking me around at the moment.
Yeah.
Like, I feel sick right now, but I'm just like, oh yeah, it's another day and
Yeah, that's
the
happening.
cosmic nut house,
That's happening. And, everybody experiences or comes into or sees the vibrational differently, through different, like, could be astrology, could be, a lot of different things.
that's
like,
right.
But there has been a lot of talk about
Yeah.
masculine and feminine energy, especially this year.
Right.
Did you notice, or do you and your partner experience it vibrationally in that regard? Do you see the polarity or the relationship or the dance of the masculine and feminine? Did it show up in your relationship?
Well, yes, it does. I can speak for myself in that I I've done a lot of work, particularly with John,
Uh-huh.
to soften because I was very guarded. My heart has been very guarded. So I had to drop, and any woman on this journey will know that this is what they've been doing. Is I had to drop the masculine. I had to soften and become more feminine and let the feminine out, because to me it wasn't safe to be feminine.
Right.
Yeah, that to let my energy out, to let my sexual energy out, to actually be in that energy meant something bad was going to happen. So, and I can feel there's parallel life trauma around that. There's other aspects that were bleeding through that I'm been processing and unpacking on behalf of. And so what I started practicing doing, particularly in my communication, was to be really vulnerable, to be really honest. And because I noticed that when I would communicate things from a harder place, it just, he's great in that way. He just doesn't change anything. It just won't budge. So I've been getting a lot of practice to soften my communication, to say how I feel. Not to expectation on him to change.
Right.
And to make it about him as much as I can.
Yeah, I
but
got
to
you.
really say, I'm just letting you know where I'm at.
Right.
And I'm still unpacking. Like, I feel even in my body, there's some huge... Remember that story Monique came and talked about how she met that person by the fire, and then she took mushrooms, and then I've got that kind of thing. It's not specific like one event like that, but I can feel that I'm actually unpacking and sorting through some pretty hefty physical stuff that I didn't know that I don't have a label for it, but I can feel that my body is actually having to purge some pretty intense, how would I say it, unconsciousness in there.
Right.
And so I'm still unpacking that. I'm still learning to fully trust, to fully let go, to fully know that someone has my back.
Well, this is...
And I'm having to...
Go.
Well, I just want to say the beauty of the feminine, particularly the feminine communication, is when I communicate from a feminine place, which is I'm just saying this is how I feel.
Right.
And I'm not hinting, I'm going, I feel like this.
Right.
Like you're doing this and you're doing that. Now, when I do that, it feels harsh and it's not loving. My heart's closed.
Well, it's not soft,
I've been practicing speaking. Say that again?
I said it's not soft, right?
No.
This is very interesting. Let me just interject a couple of things so you can keep rolling here. So, like, number one, I thought was really interesting what you said, that he has to soften, but you said I got to soften myself, my communication, and my energy, because he'll pick up on that, I guess, and then that way he'd be receptive. And then you said something really interesting where you said expressing yourself, being totally vulnerable and expressing yourself, saying how you feel, which is just putting that clearly out there, and but basically to be 100%, whatever the degree is, 100% vulnerable,
Yeah.
and make that
Yeah.
set of statements or state of the field you share, whatever the case is, it would
Yeah.
it would make sense that it would be the powerful way to do it would be to be vulnerable. And then what you said about the not trusting yet, you're still working on it, which I commend you for, because nobody's walking on water. And I'm not saying people think they do, but I think, and I'm guilty, I've gotten past something when I really haven't. But yeah, like the way you said that you have to soften the communication, or even just from what you're saying, the awareness of how you were communicating and how it affected.
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
the thing with that you're really saying to me, it works both ways. Like both have to soften. Like both have to
Yes.
speak their truth, but in a way that's not projecting. That's just saying, this is how I feel. And that's a pretty, I mean, that's really what we're doing. Really, when you think about it.
Yeah.
And it's such a human kind of endeavor. But it's where the gold is, I think. It's where the gold is.
Well, there's something for me about, and I say to him, I say, fuck you and thank you, because my human part is like annoyed because I have to go first. I want him to make the space safe for me. I want him to provide that space, but it is what it is. And if I need to go first, if I need to constantly keep making the space safe, why wouldn't I? And what I find is in the space when I'm not doing that is a righteousness. It's a,
right.
You should be doing something here.
Right,
and
right.
There you go. There's another, and it's all mine. Could I go first all the time? Could I make the space safe first all the time?
That's a good...
And if not, why not? Why do I need someone else to do that? And the reason I say fuck you and thank you is because it's uncomfortable. It brings up all my stuff, but he's teaching me. He's teaching me to love, because he won't budge unless there's love in the space. It just he won't.
So in other words, if you're saying you need to do this, you need to do that, versus saying this is how I feel. This certain things occurred between you and I, and this is how it made me feel. But you're saying that.
Yeah.
You're not saying this is how it made me feel as to externalize anything on him, but just to let him know how you feel and what it transpired from, or apparently transpired from, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the ideal. That's what I'm working on. And it's the nuances of, because I noticed that there was subtle ways of being manipulative, of trying to get him to see his part.
Yeah.
This is something I've been working on for a long time. I didn't know it was me. I always thought it was them.
Mm-hmm. We all did.
So this is something I've been at. Yeah. And I'm so grateful for, my relationship, because I'm learning to love. And there's a lot of letting go. There's a lot of letting go. Like, why would I hold on to anything? And often, I just got to close this because I'm getting a bit cool. Often, it doesn't even matter. Like, he will always, if he hears me and I say it in a way that is loving, he will always shift.
Give me an example.
But what I notice is...
Oh, I'm sorry. There's a lag. I'm not interrupting you. Keep going.
Yeah. What I notice is that I often, just in the being heard... Now, don't forget, I set this whole thing up. Like, As long I'm making it safe for him to receive me. And just in the being heard, I don't need him to change anything.
Just to make sure that...
Because I've unpacked it, I've made it safe. Because why do I need someone to change something? So that I feel better.
Of course, yeah. I mean, of course. I just wrote about this yesterday, a lot of this. So if you express in a way that's not, that the love can't be felt, let's just say
accusatory,
from his perspective, he's not going to respond. And then it's fascinating too, because like,
well, he's going to respond.
Oh, but it's not going to be,
the energy. It's not open.
Like two bulls.
It's tracking the energy. It's noticing energy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, is what I'm saying opening the space, or is it closing the space?
Okay.
And it doesn't matter how right I am about what I'm saying.
Right,
it could be totally true, what I'm saying.
Well, I think
but is it creating a healing space?
Right. Well, the way you describe it with your little phrase, fuck you, thank you, and I totally got it with the first time you said it. The human gets annoyed, and the, it's hell on one part of you, and it's great on the other.
It is.
But then the idea that, and then, of course, you got this multi-dimensional lotus behind you on the wall, and petals opening up, and you're saying that really, and I think most people would agree with you that the feminine is the initiator. And what I mean by that,
right,
in this transition we call ascension, she's got the higher intuition, or the more established intuition.
Yeah, she's receptive.
Yeah, she's receptive. So the personal awareness, well, you can't beat a dead horse, right? So you tried it the other way, and now you're saying, I can make this space safe.
Yeah.
And then and I'm sure that's 99.99% or maybe even 100% you, but when you project that total vulnerability and you express it, you are feeling safe as you can, right? Because there is still going to be a response from your partner, but what you're saying is he's feeling into the way he receives, because you're tied together, I guess, right? That's what what you're saying. Like he feels how he feels where you're coming from, I think is what I'm trying to say.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Well, let's say the premise is that I'm not safe. Let's just say this one aspect. Let's say I'm not safe with a man.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just say that. Okay. Or even with masculine energy.
Okay.
So my human wants the man to show up in a safe, healthy, trustable way in order for me to release that.
Right.
So that I get to have the experience, I am safe with the man. So if I'm holding a man to that, or the masculine to that, then I can't be free, because I'm saying the external has to change for me to feel safe.
Right.
When I approach my partner from a place of vulnerability, what am I saying? I'm saying you are safe to me. I feel safe enough to be vulnerable. So even though what I'm processing, I might not feel safe. I might feel up to my eyeballs in my own shit, but I'm willing to declare that. I'm willing to hand it over and say, this is where I'm at, and be fully vulnerable and let him see me. And so when I do that, I'm literally creating my own safety. It doesn't matter what he does or doesn't do. Obviously, if he's... But, you know, love works.
Yeah.
And the thing about my partner is it doesn't matter what I've said. We're both very committed to the long game, as in we're staying.
Right.
It doesn't matter what plays out. It doesn't matter, you know, we know that love is here,
Right.
and we know that it's on the other end, that the potential of what's here, and we're going to be as caring as we can with the capacity that we have, because we're both been burnt and we're
Right.
both wounded, have been
Right.
wounded, and coming in with a lot of, you know, eons of, and down the line of all my ancestors and in the Akash and, you know, the DNA, and it's like everything's going to show up in that space. So we're playing the long game. It's an awareness of it's not all going to be how we think it should be right now, and just there's a lot of patience in it. We both have a lot of patience and a lot of care. And the first couple of years, we've only been together, you know, just about 2.5 years, but the first section, there was for me, a lot of disassociating, you know, a lot of leaving my body. Just being in the field of a man had me in my body, like, all the time.
Wow.
So
Out of your
I had
body.
to really work on even just, like disassociating, like just not there.
Do you mean like, and there is a lag, and I'm not trying to interrupt you. Do you mean like
Yeah. No, you're
out
fine.
out of your body? I could totally get that, like say in intimacy, but like, are you talking about like even in conversations or being in the presence with them?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I think a lot of women could relate to this.
Just having him in the house, just him being in the house.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Isn't it
Because of course he has the perfect, you know, the puzzle fits, as in the things that I have issues around, he has. So it's perfect. It's a perfect combination. But I didn't really realize, even in my whole life, I didn't realize how disassociated I was all the fucking time. And I noticed that when he got a full-time job and he was away at work all day, I was at home and I was playing, and then I was having fun, and like that was fine. And then when he came and started doing work at home, I noticed like, wow, I was like in my head and not there anymore, just from him actually being there. So for me to even like have, you go.
Is that lag? Do you think that it's the disassociation was due to the you know, all the lineage of the male or the distorted masculine, or do you think that you kind of relish the privacy and the solitude, or both?
Well, they go hand in hand. The solitude allows me to feel safe.
Okay.
Because in growing up, I became very hypervigilant about where someone, particularly a man, where their energy was at. So always waiting for and expecting something unwanted to happen. Wow. So my energy's always, it goes out onto the other person, and I'm unconsciously, but my nervous system is like looking for, am I safe?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and so safety's been such a huge, big for me. And so just having a man there was enough for me to just go, okay, I'm out of here. I'll just kind of, I'm there, but I'm not really there. And so the space with John over the last couple of years has been a slow but steady and sure, because he never left and I never left. and we just stayed there, and we just kept allowing the other one to be as much as we could, and until there was trust building, because I hadn't really ever let myself trust someone else before. And it's all on me, it's all on me do that.
I guess, from a certain perspective, maybe yes, but certainly it's everybody's subjected to it, one form or fashion. So, wow, this is very interesting. It really is.
Okay.
Now.
Okay, great.
What? What? What'd you say great for?
I can't see you. No, I said great that it's interesting.
Oh, no, it's very... I think it's very appropriate. It's very interesting because it's very appropriate.
Yeah.
You're not... Look,
it's nuts and bolts.
Yeah, well, everyone knows that we've just gone through, like, a 4 or 5 month initiation or something. I don't know. And, of course, it's been very obvious in these communities, the dance between the feminine and the masculine. But...
yeah.
The insight that you have, or she has, certainly has to be taken on because of the way this, since really before, but say since 2012. I mean, who is the majority of these groups and the majority of the audiences? I mean, it's the feminine. So
yeah.
But then to also know that, and I guess it would work both ways, because I guess the man could say the same thing. It's all on me. I need to, but then again, the way things have gone, she seems to go first. So I guess you're right. You've got to make yourself safe and then show that frequency band to him. And then he matches you, something like that.
I guess what I'm saying is, like, if he was being an arsehole, it's not going to work. Like, he wants to trust me as well, and I want to trust him. So there's a matching intention there. When I say it's all on me, it's like it's all on him to do his side to the best degree that he can do.
Yeah.
And it's on me to do my side to the best degree I can do. And when I put limitations like, oh, he should be doing that or he should be doing this, I'm basically saying I don't have the capability to love here, and he needs to love first. And that's not where we're going. We're going into the realm of unconditional.
Right.
And unconditional is unconditional.
Right.
And then if I'm unconditionally loving and the chips fall where they fall and vibrations no longer match, it no longer matches. It's not about that. It's I have to be responsible for my side. And obviously he's very caring and does everything he can do with where he's at to be caring to me. It just might not suit my ego. I want it to be done in this way. And so it's a matter of me. It's softening. It's just, for me, it's just been practicing softening as much as I can and soothing my own system. A lot of self-soothing, and it feels so yummy to be vulnerable. It actually feels so nice to say, even if I'm saying something that I didn't like what you did, but to even say that in a loving way, it feels caring and it feels respectful.
Say that again. How would you say that? The old way and the new way. I guess the old way would be easy. How would you? Like, well, you know what I mean.
Starts with F, ends in U.
But you know what I mean. How would you say?
Okay, I can give you an example.
How would you say I don't like what you did in a loving way? I'm just for people to.
Well, you could. What I might say is on a feel. I start with the feelings. I might say what I'm noticing is when you say that, I get very tight. My body starts to clench. So I'm giving information. I'm not saying you're an asshole.
Yeah. Now let me ask you this.
I'm not I'm not it's not what I'm attempting to do, and I'm still practicing this, okay?
Right.
Is I'm attempting to take out blame.
Right.
Because when the blame energy comes in, it's your fault that I feel like this. Yes, he did do that thing.
Right.
And it does make me feel like this, but how I feel is my responsibility.
Right. But
that's my own history, that's my own trauma. Because I could have someone yell a whole bunch of stuff at me, and if I don't have any triggers around that, I'm not going to be bothered. I'm going to be like, okay, cool, no worries. But if there's things that I've got that I need to heal, that he's playing out the puzzle piece for, that's for me to recognize, ooh, this is my thing. And it's even about being, because what I noticed, I even did this the other day. It was only a day or two ago. I said something, and my heart was closed. And it's because I was triggered in the moment. I was in my thing. So I said it in a way that just wasn't caring. I apologized. I said what I said was kind. Now, it was true how I felt, but I wasn't holding his heart when I was saying it. I wasn't seeing him as a powerful being who's got his own shit going on.
Right.
You know, this guy would move mountains for me. He would do whatever he could if he could do that.
I mean, this is a classic. This is a classic. I mean, this is the kind of information I think that needs to be out there, because there is a different evolution or process now than there used to be in the old paradigm. Let's just put it that way. So, like the first time, I mean, because if you listen to, well, I'm not going to go there, but if let's say the first time you come to him and you say, I don't like what you did. I don't feel very nice. It doesn't make me feel very nice. Now, I could see where he could, because of his perspective and because of the stuff that he's dealt with on the other side, let's just say, right? I mean, I think there's definitely a relationship between you're not feeling safe around men and him not feeling safe around women to a degree. It may not look the same. So if you say to him... Of course,
it's totally matching.
Right? And if you say to him, I don't like what you did. Well, I don't know how you would say it. Let's say, I'm giving you this information. I'm not in judgment. I'm
feeling like this.
Yeah, I don't like what you did. I'm not trying to make you wrong, but it doesn't make me feel good. That he could actually, because of the maturation level he's at, in the programs he's yet to overcome, and the perspective he's yet to take to a higher alignment, he might take it that you're blaming him.
Well, there's a definite, there's an energy. Because what you said I think was pretty clean. Like, you did this and I don't like that. Like, that's being vulnerable. If there's a blame, it's an energy thing. If it's like...
True. That's true.
Making him bad, it's about making them bad. You're bad because you did this. It's your fault.
But yeah.
It's the projecting of the negative energy.
Yeah.
Because then he can't hear me anyway. Like, it's literally like just flogging a dead horse, because he can't hear me if I'm in that. If I'm just in pointing at him, making him bad, he can't hear that, because now he's shut. He's not feeling safe with me. So he can't even receive my communication. Like, it's just dumb. It's just on a practical level, it's not wise to actually even go that way. Like, even just from a functional level, it's how can I shift this thing that's in the space? What can I do to help move this for us both? Because we're both in this thing, obviously. Now, I'm not perfect at this, and it's hard to see it when you're in it. And something I have started to say to him was, listen, if I'm lucid enough, that's why I try and like take space.
If you're what enough?
lucid.
Okay, lucid.
Because if I'm triggered and fully in it, like we had periods where we wouldn't really even talk for days or whatever because it was like the thing was just brewing. We were both in it.
It was brewing, or was it about to burst? Brewing as in to burst, or just brewing as both?
It was revealing. The reason I say brewing is because it was revealing. It was coming up out of the mud.
Like percolating.
It was showing
like
itself.
Like an old coffee pot.
Percolating.
Yeah. So.
And my response in the beginning was, you go.
No, go ahead.
Well, I'll just say this. My response in the beginning, like at the beginning part of our relationship was, fuck this. Like, I don't want to deal with this, essentially, and making it his issue. Like, that's all I could see. And when you are in it, when you are in the trigger, that's really all you can see.
Yeah.
All you can see is what he's doing. You can't see, oh yes, this is a perfect reflection of where I do this. Like, you're just not lucid enough to see that.
I think
can I just say one more thing?
Yes. The slag is a bitch. Go ahead.
Just to finish. So what I started to see him was, and this is way down the track. Okay, again, we're playing the long game here. I started to say, I just need to get off. Like, I'm blaming you for something. I can't see my part, but I just need to get it off. Would you hold space for me so that I can say it? So then I would actually have the end of fuck you and you did this fucking thing and da-da-da and blah, blah, blah. Like, I was able to get the thing off. And I would just keep talking until it dropped in. Like, oh,
and he would,
oops.
And he would sit there and hold space.
Yeah, as best as he could, he would do that. Yeah. Now, I didn't go from the beginning into that. I would see myself blaming him over time and just go, well, that's just not. He's just shutting down. This isn't working. So it was a matter of recognizing, oh, well, that's not doing anything. And also feeling shit, like feeling yucky, like going, oh my God, I feel disgusting after speaking like that, not getting his permission to vent.
Yeah. And I think part of that vulnerability and transparency that we haven't really tapped into, yet, is when something like that happens, because, like you said, we're not lucid enough, you don't go to him you don't typically go to him and say, hey, I feel bad now because of what I did. I'm triggered
right now.
I feel bad now because of what I did, right? But the one thing I wanted to point out was...
No, you can't see it at all.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to point out was because we're like every other couple, and we've gone through energetically, the same patterns. This has been, pretty intense for, what is it, 4 or 5 months? I don't know what the exact time frame is, but is that getting to a place where you can actually step it, because it's like you step into this new space, try to develop this new communication, because the old one's not working, through these self-awareness and through discussion, whatever, and you kind of go like this. It goes like this, and then it stay a little longer, stay a little, you know what I mean? But one of the things that I think happens is, because of his journey and her journey and the languages which are different that they speak. See, they both speak a different language, and then there's a third language that was from the codependent paradigm, which is an irrational language, because neither one of them can really hear the other one. But now what's happening is we're both coming to the table, and part of that's why I said the first time you went to him and said, I wouldn't have been surprised if he didn't understand, because he was still looking through his lenses that said you were blaming him, right? but it works both ways. Like sometimes he might come to you and say, look, I want to bare my heart here. And what he's putting out there, she's not getting because there's a barrier. It has nothing to do with someone's not doing something. It's just the old programming. But I think the way that it gets worked out is what you're describing and what, I think we're experiencing and others are experiencing, which is it is kind of a new path. And I like what you said, both sides are soft. A lot of times you think the man, obviously, the distorted man from this realm has to soften up, and be a true peaceful warrior versus a alpha male warrior. But I like what you said too, is that she has to soften up, which makes sense because because both got distorted. So you got a distorted masculine, distorted feminine. How would the feminine come into balance without? Because she became distorted because she took on masculine properties or became afraid of the masculine, whatever, however you want to put it, or both. So yeah, I could see where. And for a woman to soften up. Now this is interesting because I don't really know where it lands. If a woman's, or you just tell me what you think. If a woman's to soften up in order to start the process for he will then follow suit.
Yeah.
She has to do it. I guess that's what you were saying. She has to make herself safe. If she waits on him to do something as a prerequisite for her softening up, it's not going to happen. And really, I guess it would work both ways. If I'm going to, let's just say I'm going to reach my deepest vulnerability and transparency after you do this, then we're never going to get anywhere, right?
Right.
So whether it's, now maybe the woman always goes first and maybe she doesn't, but one thing that I'm picking up, my takeaway today is either one is not going to fail, although we don't know what the results will be because there's an evolution to it, but neither one, the one that takes the initiative, and it could be either one at any time, is really not going to lose anything if their intentions are in line. Which I would think your intentions are going to have to be in line if you're going to be transparent and totally vulnerable. So really, the old saying, nothing but good will come from it. Now, does that mean there's not like a spat or a momentary misunderstanding? But I believe that energy, that energy of initiation that's taken by one or the other in pure intention, as vulnerable as they can be, transparent as they can be, is going to pay dividends, even if it doesn't pay dividends in that moment. But I also think that there has to have been a lot of progress with couples in the last few months, because otherwise we wouldn't be here. And there are some that aren't. It was a squeeze, and not just on couples obviously, but on individuals as well. But also like what you said too, and it goes both ways, because I know for myself, sometimes I can not take into account that they've got their, that she's got her stuff she's got to go through too, right? Like who am I to subjugate her? Well, to subordinate, put her experience in a subordinate position, right? That's something I think we all got to think about. Exactly. Both sides got to think about. Look, we're all going through the same thing. But when you're, these mirrors are so fascinating, because it became very obvious to me, like in my own relationship, that I know she can see things in me that I can't, and vice versa. But there was like this, how do we convey this information? And I think it's that whole thing about who goes first. And I don't mean that the women don't go first, because they typically in this cycle that we're in now, they seem to be. But who, just because that's the norm doesn't mean that he can't take the initiative and bare his soul, be vulnerable and transparent. Because again, it's going to pay energetic dividends, even if it doesn't happen on the linear timeline, literally in that moment. Not to
Well, see,
mention,
he does it in his own way. He does it in his own way. As far as communication goes, I am the instigator in as far as communication. So both of us have a history of not communicating, of resorting to not communicating. Like when I was in my late teens, I pretty much didn't speak. I remember a friend saying to me, and I was probably 19, 20 by then, he said, "Do you realize that you don't talk?" And I just resorted to not talking to stay safe. It was just safer I didn't communicate. So it's interesting, I've been on this long journey of heal your voice and express your true self and the whole singing journey, because it's all been about healing the art of communication, being able to be vulnerable and express. There's something so beautiful about that. Now, I'm a little bit further ahead in that regards, but there's other ways that he will demonstrate a vulnerability. Okay. It's not in this way over here, but it's over here. And it's easy for me to go, oh, well, that's not good enough, or that's not what I need it to be. I need it to be like this. So, and that's just not fair. It's not recognizing the intention that someone has, because someone's intention doesn't matter how fucked up they are in a way. If their intention is pure, then that's what's to be acknowledged. So it doesn't matter how messed up we both are. I can tell that there's a pure intention here, and so I've got something to work with. I'm never, he always hears what I'm saying, even if he doesn't like it, and he'll sit with it. And I've been given space to make many mistakes. I've blamed him so many times. So many times. So he's stood by me and let me have the experience. It's like a knowing that I'll just stay here and let the thing kind of work its way out. We're on the pottery wheel and we're just sculpting and trying to get the thing to go. There's the intention for me is the most important part. And I will fuck up again. I will go in with a good intent to say, hey, I'm feeling like this, and then this little side swipe comes out. It's so subtle. This is how I communicated my whole life with a man, was to be pretty much trying to cut him off at the knees, to try and dismantle the masculine energy in there so that I was safe. So I'm coming from the polar side, which is to attack and to do it in a way that's in disguise. So and I noticed that I was really good at that. I was really good at not owning my thing and making it everyone else's fault. So I've come a long way. It does spin there, but all I'm doing is just not about getting it right all the time.
Right.
I'm just trying to pay attention as I'm communicating. Like if I'm noticing that he is starting to get really angry, there's a difference between anger and I can tell that his ego is kind of not coping so well with what I'm saying. But when he's getting angry, it's usually because my blame energy is coming in. I'm actually kind of
powerful observations. So y'all, and I find it intriguing too. He shows his vulnerability or transparency in let's say a non-communicative or non-verbal way or something like that. You were saying, So that's another powerful. And I used to say all the time, put yourself in my shoes. You're not trying to put yourself in my shoes, but the fact is, and I realize this, she can't, and I can't put myself in hers. I really can't. And this is where I think it's, I really starting to like this term, storytelling. Like as we have used storytelling since the day we started, and this is how the real wisdom gets passed down and all that, right? But like to actually tell the story, let me tell you my story. Because, look, how can I okay, we're going to have a talk, and I'm going to tell you my story, and you're going to tell me yours, right? And we've been together for, you guys have been together 2.5 years, whatever. Me and we're 7 years, right? And you're going to do it the first time, consciously both agree to it. Neither one of us are going to be able to tell that story without a bit of,
Yeah.
okay?
Energy.
But if we do it once, we'll make it through the fire. And I love what you said about going back to love, and you're in for the long run. But the next time it'll be a little easier. And the next time it'll be a little easier.
Yes,
and there
that's right.
will be like a osmosis kind of a energetic takeover because of the intention. So, but I mean, I think this is not
Totally.
just for romantic, so-called romantic relationships.
No.
I think it's for all of them. And especially when you get, because here's the thing. The women have always been able to speak to each other. The men
Right.
have not been able to speak to each other. Not really. They can speak guy language,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
so now you have this dynamic of the man and the masculine and the feminine learning to speak to each other, which means that as a result, the masculine will start to be able to speak to the masculine with this frequency, we might call the mother frequency, that's been suppressed in him as well as her. So I could see where the women just thrive, and that's really what they've done. I really believe that over these 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is wild. What a great topic. I didn't know we were going to talk about this. We'll have to get together again.
Same.
Yeah, we'll have to get together again.
Yeah, that would be amazing. I'd love to.
Yeah,
I'd
of
love
course.
to share. Yeah, I had no idea that we were going to talk about this.
What
either.
about...
And I'm not surprised I felt a little bit sick because there is a bit of a vulnerability in talking about this for me.
Yeah, I had no...
I feel it's in. No, I like the nuts and bolts of communication.
Mm-hmm.
I said this, the energy closed down. I said this, the energy opened up. I like monitoring and seeing the effect of communication. That's something that I'm aware of. And yeah, it's nice to finally feel safe and start to actually feel like I can relate to not only a man, but to people, that I can just be myself.
Yeah.
And as long as I'm monitoring that need to make it the other person's fault, and I just be, because this has now bled into how I relate with people in general. Like I'm noticing like, I can just be myself. And I might even say to a friend of mine, like, hey, I'm into what you're doing right now, but I'm not trying to say it to be a bitch. I'm saying it because it's real. Mm-hmm. And I'm not even making it her fault. I'm just being honest, and I'm being solid. And I feel like that's my masculine, like that's my natural masculine, my healed masculine, where it's communicating, creating a container for space.
Yeah.
That comes out, now and then, but generally I'm in that feminine flow. I'm leaning into being in there.
Well, I wonder if it's your masculine that's providing, because I'm watching all these women step up now, and I keep saying I believe that's their masculine that's stepping up. Now it's the feminine speaking, but it's the masculine, like for you, is that energy going, okay, go ahead and it's okay. Just be yourself, be direct, and say what you got to say. It's still her voice.
Well, actually, that's perfect. Actually, and this feels like a perfect way to conclude what we're talking about. I'm healing my own masculine.
Yeah.
It's not about my partner. I'm actually saying that it's safe for me to speak. Mm-hmm. I'm creating a container. You're right. I am creating a container for my feminine to express.
It's crazy.
And that's my health masculine.
It's such a I wrote a thing back in 2015 after Morgan and I spent 2-3 months together, and she educated me on a lot of this, the dynamics of this.
Yeah.
And I wrote this thing called The Divine Dance. And just in a nutshell,
Nice.
in a nutshell, I need to show it to you. You're an artist, you'll love it. It's pretty long, but it's good. Okay, so like, I don't know if a lot of men really understand how scared women have been of men. And that's really more of a physical threat. But by the same token, I don't think women understand how fucking scared men are of women.
Yeah.
And that's a fact. And I don't care if it's an alpha male, Billy Badass guy, because it's either his mother or his wife, okay, or both. He's going to bow. You know what I mean? And so I think that's kind of the thing that we kind of wrote about was how one is coming one way, one's coming the other way. But now we have more insight, and just like what I just said, I don't believe a lot of us knew that, or would admit it, or even put it on the table and talk about it and face it. So now I can understand the physical threat that a woman would feel in her bones, right? Just from all the incarnations and so on. But by the same, this is wild. I think this is where the rubber meets the road here. I think this is, and again, it is a developing template that's not just applicable. It's like a divine union energy or sacred union energy that's really applicable to everything. Really, it's the Trinity energy.
Yes,
that's what it is. It's the conception of the third child, or the third energy being born through this equilibrium. You know, it's fascinating. Right, man? I only slept an hour and a half last night. It's now 5:30. I'm going to have to crash for a couple hours.
Yeah, same.
Hey, it's good seeing you. I really appreciate you.
Thank you so much for hanging.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's always good talking to you. And, and tell John that let's schedule a show. Yeah.
I'll certainly put out the invite.
Your brother Todd's got to, I gotta give you a little nudge there. No, I'm kidding. Whatever comes. We'd be happy to have you alone, him alone, both y'all together. Either way, it doesn't matter. Whatever.
Well, what I would like to say is the men, and I'm being very general here, but the men might not be ready yet to come out, or are increasingly ready, but I'm going to do whatever I can do to soften, to support that process, because we've been blaming the men and making it their fault collectively for so long, because that's what it looks like on the surface. But actually, love is love, and it's time for us to put the swords down, and time to actually care and know that we're all in this together, and we've all been fucked up by what's happened.
That's right.
And it's nobody's fault. It's all of our fault. So let's just do the best that we can do. And I feel that as the men come out, and when they do, it's going to be the most exquisite, beautiful homecoming. And that we've really had it wrong. There's something beautiful that is being protected inside the man, and they just won't open it up until we are so soft and so loving that they can show it to us.
Well, I wish you the best at your, what is it called? What's the rave called in the woods? Dooch nooch?
Oh, yeah, my bush doof.
Bush doof. All right, I'll see you later. Thank you.
Bye.
Peace to both of you. Bye-bye.